I think he knew it was our last night together, so he didn't hold back. Halfway through, his phone started ringing. I glanced at the screen and saw the name Chloe. She came from a wealthy family, and everyone assumed she was the woman Leo would eventually marry. The thought left a strange hollow feeling inside me. Leo had already moved away to grab his phone. He got out of bed and walked toward the balcony to answer the call. I just sat there, looking at his tall figure and broad shoulders outlined by the city lights. All right, I'll be there soon. Give me half an hour, he said. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation. After he hung up, Leo came right back to me. I was about to put on my nightgown, but he took it from my hands and tossed it aside. He placed his hands on either side of me and leaned in, but I turned my head to avoid his kiss. What's wrong? Are you not happy? Leo asked with a frown. I managed a weak smile. Your fiancé is waiting for you. He pinched my chin, forcing me to look at him. Clara, you need to know your place. You don't get to ask me about things like that. Of course, Mr. Leo. I don't have any right, I said, looking up at him with a smile. So, no, I'm not unhappy. He stared at me for a second. If you won't let me kiss you, then you can kiss me. Before he left, he transferred $10 million into my bank account. I'm selling this apartment. You need to pack your things and move out soon, he told me. I just nodded and said, okay. He walked to the door but stopped just before leaving. Without turning around, he said, Clara, if we ever see each other again, we should act like we're strangers. Understood? That night, I sat by myself on the balcony and looked up at the sky. The summer breeze felt hot and heavy, just like the city itself. The lights were so bright that they washed out all the stars. I searched for hours, but couldn't spot a single one. Finally, I picked up my phone and called my agent Mark, who was back in P City. Sweetheart, you finally called me, he exclaimed. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting? What about the artwork you promised me? There are only 3 days left this month. When are you going to send it? And what about the long-term contract with H Brand? They won't stop calling me, asking for your signature. And the reprint of your illustration book. Mark, I interrupted, I've decided to leave S City. I'm moving back home. There was a moment of silence on the other end. You're leaving? Why now? What about your exhibition next month? Exhibition, I said with a bitter laugh. Leo had made his decision. He was going to marry someone else and wanted me out of his life, so there was no reason for him to know anything else about me. I'm canceling it. No way, Mark said, his voice firm. For the last 3 years, he had always been easy on me, letting me do whatever I wanted, even when it created problems. Whenever I missed a deadline because of Leo, Mark was the one who stepped in to fix things, paying late fees and doing damage control. A foreign film studio once offered millions for the rights to my best-selling book, but I turned them down and sold it to Leo's company for $5 million less. Mark called me a fool for love 1,000 times, but he still signed the contract with tears in his eyes. When I missed my own exhibition in P City to stay with Leo while he was sick, Mark was furious. But he still smiled for the public and cleaned up the mess I had made. Everything was because of Leo. Looking back, every foolish thing I had done over the past 3 years was for him. Clara, listen to me, Mark said. I've let you get away with a lot, but not this time. I won't let you cancel. Your exhibition in S City is going to happen as planned, and you will be there. His steady voice made my eyes sting. Why? I asked him quietly. Why are you being so insistent? You tell me. Why did you suddenly decide to cancel everything? I paused for a moment before answering. Because Leo is getting married and I'm not the bride. Mark let out a short, disbelieving laugh. So that's what this is about. I was wondering why you suddenly developed a conscience and decided to call me instead of spending the night with him. Clara, he said, his voice becoming soft but firm, wake up. You are a brilliant illustrator. You need to pull yourself together, even if it's just to show that blind fool what he's missing. Got it? At dawn, I went to the kitchen, intending to make breakfast for Leo one last time. But before he could arrive, his secretary showed up. She handed me a contract, which was an early termination agreement. I looked down and saw Leo's signature, written in strong, confident strokes. I laughed bitterly. He must have been worried I wouldn't let him go. I signed it without a second thought. When will you be moving out? She asked. Right now, I replied. I packed my belongings, but there wasn't much to take. I did all of my work in my own studio, not here. For 3 years, Leo had given me a monthly allowance, as if he were trying to buy my silence or my loyalty, but he never cared about anything other than his own desires, especially not my work. He never knew that the highly sought-after illustrator whose work sold for incredible prices was me. I was about to leave with my suitcase when the secretary called out, "Wait a moment." I turned around. "Is there something else?" She gave me a thin smile, but her eyes were cold. "The necklace you're wearing, that's from the boss, isn't it?" I reached up and touched the pendant on my neck. It was a simple heart-shaped diamond that Leo had given me. It was the first gift he ever gave me after we got together, and I had worn it every day for almost 3 years. "Yes," I said. The secretary crossed her arms and took a step closer. "Besides the 10 million in the contract, the boss never said you could keep anything else. Since things are over between you two, shouldn't you return everything he gave you?" I closed my eyes for a moment, then nodded and unclasped the necklace, handing it to her without any hesitation. "That's it? You didn't take anything else, did you?" she asked sharply, giving me a long, suspicious look. "To be sure," she continued. "I should probably check your suitcase." "You don't mind, do you?" "Not at all," I replied coolly, placing my suitcase on the floor and unzipping it. She rummaged through it, checking every corner. Aside from my ID and 2 simple outfits, there was nothing else inside. Then she narrowed her eyes and said, "And what about you? You're not hiding anything valuable on your person, are you?" My expression turned cold. "Are you asking to search my body?" She raised an eyebrow. "How else can I be sure you didn't take anything from our boss?" "Was this Leo's idea?" I asked, my voice flat. "He pays you to handle his business, not to strip search women." "Or should I just take off my dress so you can be certain?" I added, gesturing to the simple lounge dress I was wearing, which was soft and had no pockets. "Would that make your job easier?" Before she could say another word, I slapped her hard across the face. "If you want to search me," I said, my voice steady, "tell Leo to do it himself." After leaving Leo's apartment, I went straight to Villa number 109. It was one of the most luxurious homes in the city, so exclusive that you couldn't just buy your way in. Mark had offered it to me, explaining that it belonged to a friend of his who was living abroad, so the house was empty. He said I could stay for a month. From the moment I arrived, the housekeeper and driver treated me with such warmth and respect, almost as if I were the owner. They took care of everything, down to the smallest details. They even gave me the master bedroom and a private studio. To my surprise, the decor and the general feel of the house matched my personal taste perfectly. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of home, something I had never felt during the 3 years I was with Leo. Because no matter how much I gave him, I was never anything more than a woman he kept in his bed. Once I was settled, I dove into my painting. I worked day and night, determined to catch up on all the commissions I had fallen behind on. The moment I submitted the last one, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. It was the first time in 3 years that I had turned in my work on time. After that, I focused completely on preparing for my upcoming illustration exhibition. That evening, after having dinner with the exhibition curator, I found myself wandering aimlessly through the streets. My mind felt clear for the first time in a long while, but then I turned a corner and stopped in my tracks. There, on a massive screen above the square, was Leo, standing right next to Chloe. They were holding hands, their fingers intertwined, and looking at each other with such tenderness. They looked so in love, with soft, intimate smiles. I stood there, frozen, as memories came flooding back. The first time I met Leo, I was 14. People used to whisper that my mother was a mistress, and that she had been driven to suicide by the man's wife. On the day she died, she had sent me out to run an errand. By the time I got back, there was an ambulance outside the house. I saw them carrying her out on a stretcher, covered in blood and barely breathing. I didn't understand what was happening. A neighbor grabbed me and pushed me into the ambulance. Inside, I watched as the paramedics tried desperately to save her, but the blood just kept coming from her mouth and nose. I felt completely numb and detached. It wasn't until they wheeled her into the emergency room that I finally broke down. I cried harder than I ever had before. But the nightmare wasn't over. A nurse informed me that I needed to pay 5,000 won before they could start treatment. I was only 14. Where was I supposed to get that kind of money? I fell to my knees and begged, "Please save my mom first." The nurse was unmoved. "It's hospital policy," she said. Just when I felt like I had nothing left, Leo appeared. He walked in as if he were from another world, calm, cold, and in control. He looked at the nurse and said, "I'll cover the 5,000." I was stunned. By the time I came to my senses and ran after him, he was already gone. The nurse told me his name was Leo, the richest man in the city. The money was paid, but my mother still died. She left a letter behind, explaining that she had never known the man she loved was married. She hadn't been a mistress, at least not intentionally. The sky suddenly grew dark, and within seconds it started to pour rain. I just kept staring at the screen. The image of the couple kissing burned into my mind. Maybe it was just the rain on my face, or maybe it wasn't. 10 years, from 14 to 24. Let's just call it even, the 50,000 yuan paid in full. From that moment on, Leo and I had nothing to do with each other. I turned to leave, and suddenly an umbrella appeared over my head. Startled, I turned to see a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom parked nearby. The back window slowly rolled down, revealing the two faces from the screen. "What a coincidence, Clara," Chloe said sweetly through the rain. "Running into you here." She smiled. "Come on, get in. It's pouring. We'll give you a ride home." I didn't look at her. My eyes were locked on Leo. His expression was blank and cold. The moment our eyes met, his gaze sharpened with an icy disdain. "Clara, don't just stand there," Chloe urged again. "Get in." I had met Chloe once before, briefly at a cafe. She had approached me and started a friendly conversation, and we had even exchanged numbers. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I was just too tired to argue. Before I knew it, I was in the car. The moment I sat down in the passenger seat, I regretted it. "Clara, let me introduce you," she said cheerfully. "This is my fiancé, Leo, and this is my friend, Clara." At that moment, my entire body tensed up, but only for a second. I forced a calm smile, turned to him, and said, "Mr. Leo, it's nice to meet you." His reply was curt and tinged with disdain. "Hello." "Leo," Chloe said sweetly, "my friend is soaked. Why don't you lend her your jacket?" I glanced down at myself. My clothes were completely drenched, clinging tightly to my skin. Even my undergarments were faintly visible through the fabric. "Ben, give her your coat," Leo ordered coldly. The middle-aged driver immediately took off his jacket without a word. I swallowed hard, forcing back the lump in my throat, and offered a small smile. "Thank you." There was a time when Leo would have been furious with jealousy if I had so much as shaken another man's hand or exchanged a few polite words. He always made sure I paid for it later, behind closed doors. And now, he had just calmly told his driver, an older man in his 40s, to give me his jacket. In that moment, the distance between us had never been clearer. I finally understood that Leo had never loved me. If he had felt even a little for me, how could he have become so indifferent, so heartless, in just a few days? "Ben, this coat smells like sweat," Chloe said with a pout. "My friend can't wear that." Leo glanced in my direction, then reached out to tilt Chloe's chin. "Baby, you really don't mind giving your husband's coat to another woman?" How many times had he called me baby in the past? "You're so annoying," Chloe giggled, clearly enjoying the attention. Then she turned to me. "Sorry, Clara, if you don't mind, just use Ben's coat for now." "I don't mind," I replied, taking the jacket from the driver and quickly wrapping it around myself. "By the way, where do you live? We can drop you off," Chloe asked cheerfully. I gave her my address. Her eyes widened. "Clara, that villa must be worth a few billion. Is it your boyfriend's? I never knew you had such a rich man in your life." I smiled politely but didn't say anything. When we arrived, I took off the coat and held it out to return to the driver. A servant was already waiting by the car with an umbrella to shield me from the rain. "No need," I said softly. Just as the driver was about to take the jacket, Leo's voice cut in, sharp and cold. Ben, have my secretary buy you a new one later. Yes, Mr. Leo, the driver replied with a grin. My hand froze for a moment, then I slowly pulled it back. I'll transfer the money for the new coat to Miss Chloe later, I said calmly. Thank you for the ride. With that, I opened the door and got out. From the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Leo's face, dark and brooding, full of something unspoken. It looked as stormy as the sky above. Hey, Clara, Chloe called out playfully. We're getting married on the 27th of this month. I'll have someone send you an invitation. You have to come. The 27th. What a coincidence. That was the day of my art exhibition. Sure, I replied without hesitation, feeling absolutely nothing. As soon as I stepped out of the car, Mrs. Davis, the housekeeper, rushed over with an umbrella. Oh, dear Miss Clara, how did you get so soaked? She exclaimed, her voice full of concern. You're freezing. If you stay like this, you'll catch a cold. Hurry inside, take a hot bath, and I'll make you some ginger tea. I wasn't sure if it was the cold wind or something else, but suddenly my eyes stung with tears. Why did Mrs. Davis remind me so much of my mother? That night, I was dozing off with a book in my hands when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I picked it up. Clara, it's only been a few days, and you've already blocked me completely. Leo's voice came through, low and gritted with anger. At that moment, he was standing inside the walk-in closet of the master bedroom we had once shared for 3 years. In front of him were neat piles of cash, totaling $3.6 million and a check for $10 million. The veins on his forehead throbbed with fury. 3 years, $3.6 million in gifts, plus a $10 million settlement. Not a penny more, not a penny less. I had left behind every single thing he had ever given me. My sleepiness vanished in an instant. Is something wrong, Mr. Leo? I asked calmly. Get your ass back here right now. Back where? I chuckled. Mr. Leo, we signed a contract. Did you find a richer man now? Someone better than me? And you think you can go against me? Leo had already done his research. House Snow 109 was registered under Julian's name. His family wasn't just powerful in this city. They were influential across the entire country, completely untouchable. Mr. Leo, you must be joking. And in that moment, I felt something I had never truly felt before. Disappointment, deep and irreversible. My heart just gave out. There was no anger, no pain, just a quiet emptiness inside me. If there's nothing else, Mr. Leo, please honor our contract and stop contacting me. Clara, when did you start hooking up with Julian? You think that leaving all the money and gifts behind erases the fact that I kept you as my mistress? That it makes it okay for you to spread your legs for Julian? I don't care how much he spoils you. You're still just a woman I got bored of and threw away. I closed my eyes and took a steady breath. Mr. Leo, do whatever you want with the money and the things. I don't want any of it. Mark had flown into the city 2 weeks early for my exhibition. We hadn't seen each other in person for almost 2 years, only through video calls. It was never that Mark didn't want to visit. I was the one who kept making excuses. I was afraid Leo would find out who I really was, afraid he would see how close Mark and I truly were. So I kept him away, again and again. But when Mark ran out of the airport and wrapped me in a hug, all the emotions I had been holding in for so long finally broke loose, and I held on tight, crying. I spotted a familiar car parked along the side of the road. Inside, Leo sat with a face as dark as a thundercloud. Thankfully, he drove off not long after, but I never expected to see him again so soon. Inside the restaurant's bathroom, I was leaning against the sink when I noticed him just a few steps away. He was staring at me, his eyes shadowed and unreadable. My body froze as the realization hit me. I turned quickly to leave, but he was faster. Leo caught me easily and pressed me against the wall, his fingers gripping my chin like a steel clamp. Clara, he sneered, you really are something. What has it been, just a few days? And you've already figured out how to juggle 2 men? Tell me, were you fooling around with Julian and that other guy while you were still with me? Leo, you're insane, I said through clenched teeth, fighting against the pain of his grip. My life has nothing to do with you anymore. He let out a cold, bitter laugh. You think you have the right to look down on me now? You, the daughter of a mistress, a woman who clings to men just to survive. What makes you think you're better than me? I shut my eyes. You knew, didn't you, that I was the girl standing outside the emergency room 10 years ago? Of course I knew, he said, his voice laced with disdain. Your mother was a homewrecker. Did you really think you would turn out any different? So, because my mother was a mistress, I had to be the same. That was how he saw me. This was the man I had loved for 10 years, the one I had hidden in the shadows for, the man I had cared for like a housekeeper for 3 long years. I laughed, and the last trace of affection in my heart vanished. Yes, Leo, I'm cheap. I'm stupid. Are you happy now? For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, maybe regret. Clara, come back to me. Just like before. I can give you everything except a title. Before he could say another word, I slapped him hard across the face. Leo, get lost. Later, back at Villa 109, I finally asked Mark the question that had been weighing on me for 2 weeks. Do you know Julian well? Yeah, he said casually. He's actually your biggest fan. He'll be at your exhibition. You two should talk. Is that really necessary? You ungrateful brat, Mark said with a laugh. He's been feeding you, housing you, and pouring wine like it's water, and you're not even going to show him some appreciation? If he's really my fan, I'll leave him a painting. That should be enough. Mark gave me a long look. You're a big deal now, Clara. Your exhibition posters are all over the city. He sighed. If you weren't so stubborn, I could have landed you a bunch of commercial deals already. I smiled. We don't need the money. Who says we don't? I do. Mark rolled his eyes. When we get back, you owe me 10 extra paintings a month to make up for my financial losses. I laughed and nodded. Deal. His gaze drifted to the corner of my lips where a faint trace of blood from the bite still lingered. The edges of his eyes turned red. Hey, Clara, he said quietly. What if we put your photo on the exhibition poster? Think about it. It would have a huge impact. Your face is even more striking than your artwork. He paused. Actually, never mind. If too many people come, it might get out of control, and if anything happens, it wouldn't be good for you. The next few days were packed with exhibition prep. Mostly, Mark was busy while I trailed behind him. 3 days before the opening, news of Leo and Chloe's wedding suddenly flooded the media and social platforms. I had been tucked away in the villa, buried in painting and research, completely out of touch with the outside world. Some of the paintings I had planned to showcase were tied to Leo, but now that we were nothing more than strangers, there was no way I could display them. I needed to create replacements, and fast. Mark pulled up some trending lists from official platforms and handed me his phone, looking both smug and irritated. Look, sweetheart, no matter how much they try to hype up that wedding, they still can't steal your spotlight. 3 of the top 4 trending topics were about me. One article reported that one of my paintings had sold for an astonishing $70 million. Another said someone had vowed to buy out every piece at my show. Meanwhile, Leo and Chloe's wedding had barely cracked the top 10. Did you pay to get me on the trending list? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Mark's eyes widened. He dramatically tapped his wrist and jabbed a finger at my forehead. Do I look like someone who would waste money on something like that? Maybe it was the stress of the exhibition, but my period came early. In the middle of the night, I woke up groggy and aching, clutching my lower belly. I made my way downstairs to fix some ginger tea. Just as I reached the steps, I heard a rustling sound below. Someone was going through something at this hour. A cold chill ran through me. Could it be a burglar? Thankfully, there was a baseball bat near the stairs. I grabbed it, held my breath, and began to slowly creep downstairs, following the sound in the dark. The sound was coming from the kitchen. As I crept closer, I saw the light was on. I tiptoed forward, careful not to make a sound. Sure enough, someone was crouched in front of the cabinets, quietly rummaging through them. My eyes widened in alarm, but I didn't hesitate. Clutching the baseball bat tightly in my hands, I charged forward. Ah! I shouted, just as I raised the bat to swing. But before I could strike, the man suddenly stood up and turned around. Caught off guard, I gasped, stumbled, and lost my balance. In the next moment, a strong arm reached out and caught me before I fell, while another hand gently covered my mouth. I stared up at the man. His features were sharp and refined, and even in the dim light, he radiated an air of elegance and quiet authority. For a second, I was stunned. "Sorry for scaring you." "I'm Julian," he said, his deep, smooth voice washing over me like velvet. It was calm and composed, the kind of voice that could ease a storm. Julian, the owner of this villa. My eyes widened even further. Julian let go of my mouth, a slight smile curving his lips. "It's late. Let's not wake the others," he said softly. His words snapped me back to reality. I looked down and realized I was still in his arms, pressed against his broad, warm chest. I was wearing a long nightgown, so nothing was exposed, but underneath, I wasn't wearing a bra. My face flushed instantly, a wave of heat rushing over me. As if jolted by electricity, I pulled away from him and quickly wrapped my arms around myself. My voice stammered. "Sorry, I didn't know it was you." It was obvious without a bra. When I had been with Leo, he loved that. He could never get enough. Julian, towering above me, gazed down. I couldn't tell what he was thinking, but the light cast a soft glow across his face, and his smile deepened in a way that made my heart skip. "I just got back and hadn't eaten yet. I thought I'd make something," he said casually. "Are you hungry too?" I shook my head quickly. "No, I'm not hungry. Please, go ahead. I won't get in your way." Without waiting for a response, I bolted out of the kitchen and back to my room as fast as I could. Once inside, I leaned against the door, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. My face was burning, and I had almost forgotten the cramps in my stomach. That was beyond embarrassing. Now that Julian was back and after what had just happened, maybe it was time for me to move out. Yes, that would be best. I would talk to Mark first thing in the morning. Climbing back into bed, the cramps returned in full force. Sleep was impossible. Just as I was about to give up and get up again, there was a soft knock at the door. I froze. "I made some ginger tea for you. Would you like some? Do you need painkillers?" It was Julian. How did he know I was on my period? Confused and slightly panicked, I threw on a coat and opened the door. Julian stood there holding a tray. On it was a steaming bowl of ginger tea and a box of painkillers specifically for menstrual cramps. I looked up at him. He looked back at me. The steam rising from the tea blurred the space between us, softening everything. For a moment, I thought maybe it was just in my head, but I saw something gentle flicker in his eyes. "There's a stain on the back of your nightgown," he said quietly. Before I could reply, Julian handed me the tray. "The tea might not work right away, but the medicine will. Take them, then get some rest." He turned and walked away. That night, I slept better than I had in days. The next morning, I went downstairs and glanced around. Julian was nowhere in sight. I let out a sigh of relief. "Good morning, Miss Clara," the housekeeper greeted warmly. "Mr. Julian returned last night, but he left early this morning with Mr. Mark. They told me to let you know to have breakfast on your own." She was always kind and cheerful whenever she saw me. I nodded. "Thank you for the ginger tea last night." The housekeeper blinked in confusion. "Ginger tea? I didn't make any tea for you. Did you want some?" "I can prepare it now." I froze. That thick, steaming bowl of tea last night? It hadn't been made by the housekeeper. Then it really was Julian. That noble, respected young master of a prestigious family had made ginger tea for me in the middle of the night. I swallowed, still stunned. "Do we have any medicine at home for menstrual cramps?" The housekeeper tilted her head. "Are you in pain? I can go out and buy some right now. I'm already past menopause, and there's never been another young woman living here, so we don't usually keep that kind of medicine." Seeing the shock on my face, she chuckled and patted my arm. "Wait here. I'll be back in no time." "No, it's okay," I said quickly, stopping her. "I already took something." The housekeeper paused, then looked at me with concern. When did it start? Are you still in pain? Sit down. Let me take care of breakfast today. I nodded, letting her guide me to the couch in the living room. Mr. Julian is a good man, isn't he? She said, smiling. He really is wonderful in every way. The only problem is he refuses to date or get married. His parents worry about him all the time. She went on, her tone gentle. Julian's mother came from a noble family. As an only child, she had just one son, Julian. So he's the sole heir to both families. I smiled politely but said nothing. I didn't want to continue the conversation. I just wanted to avoid Julian as much as I could. So after breakfast, I stayed in the art studio for the rest of the day. The exhibition was only 2 days away. Since I had some free time, I decided to finish the painting I had been working on as a gift for Julian. After thinking it over, I settled on creating a splashing style piece, something bold and expressive. The canvas was quite large, and I ended up securing it directly against the floor-to-ceiling glass window in my studio. The top portion was so high that I had to climb onto a stool just to reach it. I became completely absorbed in the process, so focused that I didn't even notice when the sun had gone down. What I also didn't realize was that someone had been quietly standing at the doorway for quite some time. By the time I added the final stroke and stepped down from the stool, I felt completely drained, like a balloon that had lost all its air. My mouth was dry and my stomach was empty. I set the brush aside, ready to head downstairs and grab something to eat. But just as I turned around, I found myself locking eyes with a pair of deep, brilliant eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 stars. That gaze was warm and intense, fixed on me. I froze, my throat dry. I swallowed hard and asked, Mr. Julian, how long have you been standing there? An hour, he said casually. Maybe more? He was standing there, his face unreadable, a small smile playing at his lips. I had no idea what that smile meant, and suddenly I felt a bit self-conscious. I glanced away. I'm starving, I said quickly, trying to break the moment. Is there dinner? Yes, he replied. It's been ready for a while. We were just waiting for you. I nodded, suddenly feeling warm in the face. Then let's eat. All right, he said. To escape the awkwardness, I kept my head low and walked past him. I didn't need to look back to know he was following me, keeping a steady distance of about 2 meters. As soon as I entered the dining room, Mark's dramatic voice echoed through the room. Baby, you finally finished your masterpiece. If you had taken any longer, we would have had to call this a midnight snack instead of dinner. Serve the food, Julian's calm voice came from behind me. Soon the table was set, and I wasted no time. I was famished. I dove in, too hungry to care about anything else. Hey, slow down, Mark teased. Wipe your face. You're about to turn into an abstract painting yourself. He laughed and handed me a hot towel. With my mouth full, I looked up at him and mumbled, Can I finish eating first? Mark blinked, a little taken aback. Go ahead, Julian said with a slight nod. Once I had eaten my fill, I finally felt like myself again. I turned to Julian. Mr. Julian, what did you think of the splashing style painting from earlier? His sharp brows relaxed slightly. After a moment, he said, If it were auctioned, I would expect it to fetch at least 10 million. Mark's eyes nearly popped out of his head. I need to see this for myself, he shouted, jumping up and running to the second floor. I couldn't help smiling. Thank you, I said softly. Julian's praise meant a lot. After all, the painting was meant for him. If he hadn't liked it, I would have painted something else. The day before the exhibition, Mark accompanied me to the venue. Everything was already arranged, and it looked beautiful. I was more than satisfied. Baby, that painting from yesterday is amazing, Mark said, his eyes wide with admiration. What's it called? We should give it a special display. It deserves its own spotlight. I shook my head. It's called City's Night Wanderer, but it won't be on display. I'm giving it to Mr. Julian. Mark blinked, then narrowed his eyes with a teasing smirk. Hey, be honest. Do you have feelings for him? I rolled my eyes. Dear Mark, you already knocked some sense into me. I'm not going to be a love-struck fool again. Hey, that's not fair, Mark said. That jerk Leo, he's not even worthy of Julian's pinky toe. I grinned. And what does that have to do with me? That evening, I tried to avoid spending too much time around Julian, so I deliberately dragged Mark out for dinner. He said a friend had recommended a great restaurant. We went, but to my surprise, Julian was already there, and judging by how he was seated, it looked like he had been waiting for us. Mark pulled me forward. See, my friend was right. This place is amazing. I wanted to strangle him. I gave Mark a glare, but he only smiled innocently. Meanwhile, Julian had already walked over and politely pulled out a chair for me. Please, have a seat, he said. Thank you, I replied, sitting down as Mark took the seat beside me. Julian returned to his own seat and handed me a menu. What would you like to eat? I'm not picky, I said. You decide, Mr. Julian. He nodded and called the waiter over. As he placed the order, I listened closely and my heart began to race. Every single dish he chose was something I loved. I had always assumed that Mrs. Davis, the housekeeper, cooked my favorite meals because Mark had told her, but now I couldn't help but glance up at Julian. At that exact moment, he finished ordering and looked directly at me. Our eyes met under the soft lighting of the restaurant. His gaze was gentle and steady, full of a warmth that caught me off guard. I forced a smile and asked, Isn't Mr. Julian from B City? How come you like the food here so much? You even seem to know it really well. He smiled slightly. When I was a child, I ate these kinds of dishes often with my grandparents. Over time, I grew to like them. I nodded, unsure of what to say next. Thankfully, Mark jumped in with another question. By the way, how are your parents doing now? Julian picked up his glass, took a small sip of water, and said softly, They're in good health, but they're planning to cut ties with me. What? Mark asked, shocked. I was just as curious. Julian lowered his gaze slightly and said, Because I refuse to go on any more of the blind dates they arranged. I haven't met a single one. I was momentarily speechless. Julian, what a coincidence you're back in S City. Chloe's voice suddenly cut through the air. She appeared out of nowhere, standing at the edge of our table midway through lunch. Julian raised an eyebrow and gave her a cool glance. Who is this woman calling out randomly like that? Chloe's smile froze in place. Beside me, Mark let out a snicker and laughed out loud, unable to help himself. Clara, you're here too. Sorry, I didn't notice you, Chloe said, turning toward me with a forced cheer. I gave her a faint nod. You got my wedding invitation, right? You have to come tomorrow, and don't forget to bring your boyfriend. I really had no interest in small talk, so I just replied, Okay. I had no intention of attending, but I would still make sure the red envelope was delivered. By the way, she continued, what's your boyfriend's name? I'll arrange seats for both of you. Mark rolled his eyes. I don't have a boyfriend right now. No boyfriend? Chloe said with fake surprise. But just a few days ago you said you had one. You told me he was rich and your relationship was great. What happened? Did you already break up? Mark couldn't hold back anymore. Chloe, he said loudly, on the way here I saw your fiancé, Leo, with a young girl. They were heading into a hotel. If you hurry, you might still catch them in the act. He deliberately raised his voice so that the nearby tables turned their heads. Now it was Chloe's turn to go pale. Who are you? Do you even know my fiancé? Stop making a scene, she snapped. Mark laughed mockingly. You people have been buying hot searches left and right lately. I'm not blind. That face of Leo's, ugly as it is hard to forget, even if I wanted to. You should hurry, or you'll miss your chance. Chloe's face twisted in fury. She stomped her foot and stormed off without another word. Under the table, I gave Mark a big thumbs up. His talent for lying so confidently had really improved. If you want to compliment me, just say it, Mark said, grinning. Holding it in must feel uncomfortable. I laughed softly, but when I looked up, my gaze accidentally met a pair of deep, dark eyes, bright, clear, and focused on me. I froze, my eyes quickly darting away from Julian's. Do you need a boyfriend? He asked casually. I was completely caught off guard, my face turning red. It's nothing, I mumbled, flustered. Julian withdrew his gaze and said, Let's eat. but after that, I could barely taste the rest of the meal. When we returned to Villa 109, I made up an excuse and retreated to my room. I didn't come out again. There was a strange heaviness in my chest, something I couldn't quite explain. It was as if something had lodged itself there, refusing to move. After a long shower, I stepped out onto the balcony in my nightgown to get some fresh air. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp and cool. As I slid the door open, I noticed a tall figure standing on the adjacent balcony. It was Julian. He had also showered and was wearing a dark blue bathrobe. It was untied, loosely hanging from his shoulders, revealing his well-defined chest and toned abdomen. I froze. I hadn't realized the next room was his. Just as I turned to go back inside, I heard him call my name. Clara. I closed my eyes briefly, but stopped in my tracks. Then I heard a soft thud. Looking up, I saw Julian effortlessly vault over the balcony railing and land right in front of me. "What's wrong?" he asked, stepping closer. He paused for a moment, then continued. "The question I asked you at the restaurant, you still haven't answered." I blinked. "What question?" He let out a low, warm laugh, his chest rising slightly with the sound. "Clara, do you need a boyfriend? Because I happen to need a girlfriend. How about we give it a try?" I bit my lip, unsure. "Julian, I'm not sure right now." "You don't have to answer me now," he said gently. "Give me your answer after your art exhibition ends." With that, he lowered his head and pressed a soft kiss to the top of mine. Then, without waiting for a response, he turned and leaped back over the railing. I looked toward his balcony. He was already there, facing me. Our eyes met. He smiled, a soft, affectionate smile. "Get some rest, okay? Good night." Back in my room, just as I was about to turn off the light, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Without thinking, I answered. "Clara, who are you really? What is your background?" Leo's voice came through the speaker, sharp and filled with tension. At first, I thought he was calling to scream at me about the rumors Mark had spread at dinner, but instead he was asking about my identity. "Does it concern you?" I replied coolly, then hung up and blocked the number. After that, I turned off my phone and went to bed. Elsewhere, Leo threw his phone across the room in anger. Over the past few days, he had quietly asked people to look into my background. The servants at the villa said I was friends with Julian and Mark and that I spent most of my time painting. They mentioned I had been busy preparing for an art exhibition. It was then that Leo recalled the growing buzz about a young, mysterious artist whose illustration exhibit was set to open in S City the next day. There were rumors that the artist was a local, only 24 years old, known for her beauty and extraordinary talent. Everything, my age, my appearance, my timing, lined up. Then he remembered the time he saw me sketching in a notebook. A creeping panic set in. No, it can't be," he muttered to himself, trying to push the thought away. Clara couldn't be the famous artist. If she was, why would she have hidden it from him? If she really loved him, she would have told him. If Clara were that artist, he could have married her. Her status alone would have erased any flaws in her past. She would have elevated his family and brought prestige to his company. So, if she never said it, then she couldn't be that artist. Yes, Clara was not that artist. She couldn't be. Meanwhile, my art exhibition was just about to begin. It would run for 5 days. The first day of the exhibition was the most important, and everything else went as planned, except for one unexpected twist. Without telling me, Mark secretly allowed a large group of journalists into the venue. I had just finished answering the last few questions during the Q&A session when a familiar figure appeared from the crowd. It was Leo. He stormed forward, snatching the microphone from one of the reporters. His eyes were bloodshot and his jaw was clenched tightly. "Clara," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "who told you to hide your identity? Do you have any idea how much I love you?" A wave of shock rippled through the room. Every camera turned toward him. For days, his wedding to Chloe had dominated the headlines. Now, this dramatic interruption sent the whole scene into chaos. I froze, stunned by his sudden appearance. "Do you know who I love?" Leo cried out, tears running down his face. "It's you." In just 2 weeks, he looked noticeably worn down. A reporter stepped forward, microphone raised. Mr. Leo, if I'm not mistaken, isn't today your wedding day with Miss Chloe? Did the groom end up at the wrong venue? Shut up, Leo snapped, glaring at him. Ignoring the murmurs of the crowd, he moved closer to me, only to be stopped by security. Clara, it's been 3 years. We were together for 3 years. Did I ever treat you badly? Why did you hide your identity from me? I looked at him and finally found my voice. Mr. Leo, we broke up a month ago. That was only because you lied to me, he shouted. If I had known earlier that you were the famous artist, I never would have let you go. The woman I was supposed to marry today, it should have been you. The crowd gasped. His words made it clear he had only come chasing after me because he had discovered my true identity. People began to whisper, and soon the murmurs turned into boos. But Leo didn't care. He dropped to one knee in front of me and pulled out a small box from his pocket. Clara, he said, opening the box to reveal a ring. From the beginning until now, you are the only woman I have ever loved. I don't care about the past. I just want to be with you. Marry me. Before I could respond, a cold and powerful voice cut through the crowd. Mr. Leo, are you really proposing to my girlfriend? Do you think I'm dead? Everyone turned in the direction of the voice. Julian was walking toward the stage with the grace and calm authority of a king. The room fell completely silent. Clara is my woman, he said, stepping up beside me and wrapping a protective arm around my shoulders. Then he turned his gaze to Leo, his expression cold and unwavering. She broke up with you a month ago. I'm the one standing next to her now. No, Leo shouted, shaking his head in disbelief. That's not true. Clara doesn't love you. She loves me. Is that so? Julian replied calmly. Then why don't you ask her yourself who she loves? He looked at me, his expression softening. I met his eyes, filled with tenderness and strength, and without a second thought, I answered clearly, Of course it's you. A gentle smile spread across Julian's face. Under the gaze of the entire audience, he leaned down and placed a soft kiss on my forehead. The crowd erupted in cheers and screams. Security moved in and forcibly escorted Leo out of the venue. But even as he was pulled away, he kept his eyes locked on me, filled with regret and desperation, silently begging for another chance. But that no longer had anything to do with me. Apart from Leo's outburst, the exhibition went smoothly and ended on a high note. Major media outlets rushed to cover it, and to my surprise, a collector offered to buy every single painting on display. They were willing to pay any price, but I turned them down, only allowing them to choose 10 pieces. It felt like the perfect ending. As for Leo, his life took a sharp turn. Not only did he lose Chloe, but he also became an enemy of her entire family. They cut ties with his company and used their influence to pressure him in every way. His company's reputation plummeted and the stock price followed. But honestly, I didn't care. On the day the exhibition ended, I booked a flight to P City. For the past few days, I hadn't known how to face Julian. I had been avoiding him, coming home late, and leaving early. It seemed he understood because he never once tried to approach me during that time. On the plane, I took out my phone and typed a message. Thank you for helping me that day, but I'm not ready to start a new relationship. I'm sorry. I hit send, then switched my phone to airplane mode. Leaning back in my seat, I closed my eyes. Excuse me, miss, may I get through? A familiar voice echoed gently above me. It was deep, smooth, and rich, like warm milk poured through the strings of an old cello. My heart skipped a beat. I opened my eyes quickly, and there he was. Julian. His handsome face was just inches away. My eyes began to well up. What are you doing here? Julian smiled, his expression calm and full of warmth. I've been in love with a girl for many years, he said. She's heading back to P City, so I decided I would follow her there. Even if I have to chase her to the ends of the earth, I'm going to make her mine.